Hello folks, and welcome to the channel, or welcome back. And as you can see, spring has set in. So there's some other work to be done than the things I would like to do, especially when you have a couple of days of holiday. The grass is growing like mad, so we need to get the ride-on lawnmower fixed because I noticed a problem with it. I would love to work on the house and install the planks on the ceiling, but this has to wait. And I would love to start working on the MGA. Or make some progress on the chassis of Old Rusty, because that is still sitting here and waiting to be further disassembled and then be sandblasted. However, we all have different priorities, and the priority right now is to get the ride-on lawnmower ready for the season. This tractor is a Ferris zero turn, and we got 411 hours. I've had this thing for about 14 years already. I noticed that this wheel here and the other one are really leaning inwards. If this was a race car, we would say a lot of negative camber, and it's not normal, so I suspect a problem. So we need to check on that, besides all the other maintenance we have to do. The air filter was replaced last year, so I'm just gonna blow it out. And as you can see, it's not really dusty. A little bit, but not too much. So next year we'll put the new one up. It depends how dusty the environment is and how many times you run the lawnmower. And then we also have the inner filter. But that's really clean, as you can see. So the filter can go back in. First the inner filter. And then the outer filter. Good tools are expensive, we all know that. But in the long run, everything pays itself off. We're looking at the radiator right here, and you can see we have a pile up of grass. And that is not a good thing to have, because it's going to reduce the cooling efficiency also. All this needs to be removed and blown out. So I'm just cleaning the honey grit of the radiator. So I have no more grass on it, and the air can now flow nicely through it. Because in the summertime, it can get pretty hot when you're cutting the lawn. So I think this is already looking a hell of a lot better. And you'll see how much debris we have. There's a lot of pieces of branches and leaves inside. All that stuff all needs to go out. Because we have two big fans here for the oil pumps. Because all this is hydraulic. So I have hydraulic motors on the wheels, on the rear wheels at least. So all that really needs to be cleaned up. The engine inside is a diesel. It is actually water cooled, and the cooling liquid is right here. And you can see it's still sitting to the max, so we are good with that one. Nothing to be done in that area. I think Ferris is a US built lawnmower. But in Europe, we are getting a different powertrain in it. And as the name implies, this is actually a zero turn, so it spins on its axle. Very handy. That's one of those things I often do, is putting the bolts back where I got them out, so I don't lose them. The engine that is fitted is a Yanmar 2-cylinder diesel injection. These are the two injectors. Really, really a good engine. The oil filter is sitting right here, and I had it changed last year, so I didn't do a lot of hours. So I'm not going to change it this year. That is for next year. But we do change the oil. Believe it or not, but we do have shocks on this lawnmower. But you can see all the grass that's sitting in between the springs, and of course this is dried up now. So all this stuff we need to get from in between, so everything is ready for the new season. All right. You won't see me using a high pressure water cleaner system on my tractor or my lawnmower here, because that is not necessary. Water gets in all these little cavities and areas, and at the end you have more trouble with it than anything else. So just a cloth is good enough to wipe off most of that dirt or dust, because that's all what there is on this lawnmower. If you really like to have it a little bit glossy, you always can, of course, but it's not that it's that important, not for a utility tool. But then again, I do like my machinery clean and tidy. A lot of debris inside here, so let's blow it out. So number 1 is done. I like to spray some silicone ND on it, on those grids here. It's not really anything sticky, but it protects it a little bit, and it's not going to be really greasy, so that's good. And the grass actually will fall off much easier if there's a little bit of that silicone on it. We have a hydraulic tank here on the site, and let's have a look if it's full or not. And that looks good. It's about up to this level. That's where it's supposed to be. So let us have a look what's wrong with those wheels, and we also need to take the blades off to get them sharpened again. Well, here we have it. So here is the problem. This connecting rod between the 2 wheels is snapped off here. I think it's what we call metal fatigue, so we'll have to re-weld it. This is a bit of a close-up, and you can see it is really ripped here. So I will have to undo a couple of bolts, and then we can take this entire bar out. So let's see if we can get this bar off. You can see already how that swings back and forth. There's a lot of debris out there, so sometimes it's a bit hard to grab the bolts. Okay. So here is the piece, and in fact it's a double fracture. We got this part right here that should go on here, which we need to re-weld. And we have a second part that also broke off over here. So those 2 parts, oops, that's the wrong direction. It should go on like this. So we need to clean up those pieces and then weld it all back together, and hopefully that will work. So I'm going to clean this entire piece up so we are back to the bare metal, then degrease it, and then start to welding it. One of the pieces is slightly bent, so I'm going to try to straighten that up a bit. So everything is cleaned up as it's supposed to be, so now we should be able to weld it up and see how it goes. It's pretty solid and it burned through very well on both sides, so now let's put the other piece up. So now we can paint it, and I think this will be all right. So I still have some red paint from the Stedman. It's hot. I could actually get this painted in the paint booth, but there's no need for this. I'm just going to use a little roller to put the paint up. I mean, after all, this is not a show car. This is a lawnmower. Okay, so that is painted. I'm going to let it dry and give a last coat maybe in the back here a bit. And meanwhile, we're going to take off the blades and sharpen the blades. So I got 3 blades on this lawnmower. I replaced the blades last year, so they are still in a fairly good condition, except this one, which having a small dent here. So I'm just going to shorten them slightly, but not on a grinding stone, but just with a disc, a sanding disc, and that will be good enough. So the blades are sharpened, and I don't need to balance them because I barely took anything off. And these are the bolts, and I always have copper grease on those bolts, so they're easy to remove. So the blades are going up like this, and they rotate clockwise. You got to make sure that the cutting part is pointing in the right direction and that the wings are upwards. And then we just bolt them down. And that's all it takes. You might want to check the belts. They all look quite all right because I changed them last year, so there should be no big change on them. The oil comes out right here, and it's a bit tricky to get it out, but it works. Okay. It was a bit tight, but it came out. Let me get a bucket, because otherwise it's going to be all over the floor. Hopefully that's the right spot. Let me roll off my sleeves, because the last time I did it, it actually went all into my sleeve. So I don't want to have that to happen again. Just greasing the bearings until you see it coming out on the sides. All right. So we're all set. So we installed the bar, and now all I need to do is lock it down, and we are done. All right. That's it. We are done. So now we're going to grease the deck and remove all the dried up grass that is fitted inside the deck. And as you can see, there's a lot of grass inside the deck. So I'm going to grease up the spindles here, and there's a couple of them, and blow out all the dried up grass, and then we can put it back together. Just giving it a few strokes with fresh grease. So 3 spindles. All right. Right, so let's put the oil in, and it's in a very annoying place all the way down there. So I have to make this special kind of an arrangement with a long hose to pour that in, because otherwise you're going to spill it all over. So it takes about 2 liters. Let it drip out, otherwise I'm going to spill it all over the place. All right, so let's have a look how much we have in it now. And I think this is nicely topped up. So we all set. And that's the last part we need to do, fitting the rear panel. And then we can give it a try and see how it goes. Now the entire maintenance on this lawnmower took me about 3 hours. And that's about the normal time. But of course, in this specific case, we had a bit of extra work to be done because of the issue with the broken axle in the back. All right, so let's clean that up real quick. Not that it's that dirty, but like I said before, I like my machines to be fairly clean. All right, guys, this is it. So let's give it a try. So that's working fine. So I'm going to put it back in the barn, and then it's time for dinner.